Okay, hello everybody. Good morning. So usually I'm not a morning person, so be very surprised that I'm here. Like to be very honest, I forced myself to get up. But so today we're going to be talking about abolition and sharpening the spear for resistance in and out of the resistance. So all the parts that have to do with leading up to abolition and the what comes after abolition too. Um, so we're just going to introduce everybody really quick. I'm Yolanda. I am a Palestinian Mexican organizer from Chicago. I was born and raised here. Both of my parents are not from this country, so my way of living is not like an American. It's very much like an immigrant, and I prefer it that way. Um, but yeah,
Hey y'all, I'm Malika. I'm here with the Final Five campaign. I'm a formerly incarcerated youth, and what we do in our campaign is we're trying to stop new youth prisons from being built and close the ones down that's still here.
what about on Zoom?
How everybody doing? I'm the community organizer for the Coalition Decarcerated Illinois, also system impacted youth as well that transferred to the adult facility. And I'm here to definitely add the element of experience as my expertise on this topic.
Is there somebody else on Zoom?
Yeah, this is Flint. So I'm not representing any organizations today. I'm just moving representing autonomous work. I do a lot of work with people inside. I mainly work with people inside versus like working with people on the outside that work with people on the inside. So I do a lot of like supplying emergency assistance. So when people are being tortured inside, they'll call me, and then I'll try to advocate to get them in a safer place or get them to the hospital. I supply a lot of people with legal information, and then I do other efforts that are like maybe visiting a prison town and raising a little hell or something like that.
Okay. So we're just gonna actually just jump into it because abolition is something that's like very like hands-on but not hands-on either. It's a construct, but it's also you can something you can live out. And about a raise of hands, how many people actually know what abolition is? Okay, a good amount, a good amount. And what about our panelists? How do you define abolition?
I can start. For me, it's abolition is like ending something, completely ending something. Like don't change it, don't try to add something new to make it a little better. Like completely like get rid of it. So like for me in my work with abolition is like no more youth prisons. Like don't make a new one, don't make it prettier because a golden cage is still a cage. So just end it completely.
What about our people on Zoom?
Good morning, everybody. My name is Destiny. And for me, abolition to me means um, abolishing the things that have been set in place that do not work. Um, Clearly, which would be prisons, police, um, anything that encompass keeping those things going. So to me, just abolishing prisons and anything that reproduce those systems. Yeah, and I would say abolition for me is still like a growing thing. I'm still learning it. I'm still embodying it. I'm still practicing it. So yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Dusty. Um, for me, abolition is definitely an ending to a system. It's an ending to an ideology, a way of life that's ran through patriarchy, that's ran through the sins of this nation that they built it on. Abolition is dismantling the whole system in all facets. So yeah.
Yeah, abolition is, complete removal of the prison system and police. It's a black liberation movement. It's an anti-colonial movement. It's a complete dismantling of white supremacist constructs. Um, and it's not really like a nonprofit led movement. A lot of people are kind of like getting misinformed on what it is. A lot of the hardcore work is going on inside the prisons, and that's what's informing everything, and people are often overlooking that. I mean, it's Black August. You can start off by looking up George Jackson and seeing what's going on with Black August.
So a lot of times when people talk about abolition, a lot of times people get scared, and it's like, what comes after abolition? If you abolish the police, if you abolish prisons, where are these people gonna go that have committed crimes, right? So and say, where like the confusion comes from reform versus revolution, and how do you guys really explain to people the reform versus the revolution?
I would say like in my work, I've seen it in ways like working with, like when I was incarcerated, they had came up with like a transformation model that they had access to like sit on and talk about, but it's just more about like covering up their goals or what they're already doing versus like, no, this needs to be stopped. Like it's a harmful system. Like it don't needs to be going on anymore. But yeah, I think that's just the difference of trying to like reform something, they trying to like change it, but like not really for real. And like we like, nah, it needs like a complete end.
What about you guys on Zoom?
So, I would like to talk about like, because people do say, well, we can't imagine a world without prisons. What's going to happen to these type of people? What's going to happen to individuals that do these things, right? And I would like to transport us back to when Christopher Columbus found us. And when he came to this country, one of this land, one of the things he wrote back and said, like, oh, they're so nice, they're so gullible, they give us anything. That state of mind that he wrote it back to, that he thought that, oh, we should exploit, was our normal state of mind. In this state of mind, we live in harmony with the land, we live in harmony with one another. Um, that's what's supposed to happen after abolition, right? Is us returning to a regulatory homeostasis of being as a society. That will take a lot of unlearning because we are all victims of this system, all of us. The way that we perceive the world is a direct indoctrination that happened to us as children through school, through church, through patriarchy. And so in learning these systems, if or the day that abolition ends or abolition happens, is when healing has to continue, right? Because in order for us to imagine that world that people say can exist, where crime isn't happening, we would then have to be living in a state of homeostasis, a state of love, of harmony, as we was when they quote unquote found us. Um, so yeah, I think that abolition is a necessity. This country is carrying out its sin from slavery. They transform it into a prison system and laws that um, disenfranchise people and ostracize people and turn them into second class citizens, which comes with a whole psychological mindset that happens. So we have to unlearn a lot, and in unlearning a lot, just be. We're not violent as a people. We're not aggressive as a people. We're not. The system has caused us to live in this cycle of harm, harm, and harm. They harm us, we harm them, we harm each other because we're in that state. We're in that state of hurt. I love this new saying that I'm walking into, is that it's not what you are, it's who you are. Um, your actions are going to be a direct reflection of who you are. So if we can return to a place of homeostasis and love and harmony, I think there is where lies all our answers of how this world can look without a prison or a policing system. That prison and policing system is being carried out by hurt. And they put us through hurt and then said, watch what these people, watch how they react when drugs get involved. Watch how they react when guns get involved. Watch how they react when the music system, when the music industry pushes us to think a certain way and forces our children to grow up with this reality. So yeah, I think that abolition needs to happen. Reform, I have a soft spot in my heart for reform for the simple fact that when I was incarcerated, there is things that very much so needed to happen to better our current situation. Now I understand, like, I'm an abolitionist by heart. I also was there for 13 years from age of 14 to 27. And I appreciate those times where policy changed on the inside and it made my situation a little bit more comfortable. I appreciate those times where laws changed and it freed up avenue for individuals to go home early. I do appreciate those moments. But definitely we have to do away with the system. Thank y'all.
No, thank you. Actually, like, you bring up an interesting point where this society that we live in is very much based on individualism, that really only you look out for yourself or your family, and that's all that matters. But once we return back to our more community-based living, we would see how our community where we live, the people that we live next to on the everyday basis, we determine how we live. We determine how we keep each other safe. We determine what's best for us. So I agree with everything you said. What about the other panelists on Zoom?
I'm sorry, can you all hear me? Okay. I just wanted to add to a little bit of what King Musa said. And I wanted to dig deep into being in prison and hearing the word reform, or seeing the transition from actually being in and not having certain things, because they would make you think like, oh, a few extra hours out of your cell, or a Dove bar of soap, or extra time on a phone is like a new approach, like we're treating you better, we giving you this. And I just reform just is not, I just don't believe in it. Like, you're it's basically saying basically rocking us to sleep the time being here, but when we get out, it's like, okay, yeah, you gave me soap, you gave me extra time on the phone, you let me, sit with my parent for an extra 25 minutes, but what does that change when I get out? That's not improving a skill set for me. That's not allowing me to be fully free when I come home. That's not opening doors and opportunities and giving me resources for when I come home, so I don't have to continue going through this system and it continue being a cycle of trauma, and also allowing just, I just feel like reform is it just ruin people's lives, because it rocks you to sleep, it pacify you for that time being, but it's really not fixing anything.
No, totally. Like you said earlier, just because it's a golden cage doesn't mean it's not a cage. Like, just because they give you more soap or they give you more phone time. I grew up with my father in jail, and most of my birthdays, I have 7 siblings. My mother raised us all by herself, all because of the false imprisonment that this country lives on. And not only was my father in American prisons, but he was in Israeli prisons too. Not just in this country, but in another country too. So you see how jail, it follows you wherever you go. And that status of being a criminal follows you. So regardless if they give you a couple more days outside of your cell, like if they give you a couple more hours outside, or they give you these extra amenities, doesn't mean you're still not in jail. Doesn't mean that you're not gonna get those same repercussions when you're outside of that prison cell, because it follows you forever. Like, my father was always listed as an inmate and will forever be known as a felon. Forever. No matter where he goes, that's the first thing they recognize about him, is that he was an actual criminal, no matter what was put against him. So yeah, I agree with you 100%. Reform doesn't exist You either demolish it and abolish it completely, or you let it go on. And letting it go on is basically saying that generational incarceration is okay. Because when my father was in prison, it left my brothers with nobody, it left us with nobody. It left us waiting, and it was a mystery where we were gonna get our next meal, where we were gonna get our school clothes from, and anything. My mother was struggling. So we did things what we had to do, and it caused my brother to go to jail, both of my brothers. So this idea of reform doesn't exist in reality. It's a facade. What
Yeah,
about
I was about to say I agree with that, and I also think like a lot of reforms are often and typically driven by financial incentives, and like they provide specific info to the public, which is like has a specific reality that's catered towards a specific reform, and the info is not always completely accurate, like as far as how many people it does affect and who it doesn't affect. It also kind of like puts the spotlight on one issue that's easily changeable in the prisons versus like actual prison conditions. And it never talks about the people who are not affected or are negatively affected by the reforms. And reforms often utilize like exploitation of incarcerated people or formerly incarcerated people to push their agenda.
so in your guys' political work, and how does the tension between reform and revolution cause tension between like the community and when you are trying to spread more awareness? Like, what relevant example does it impact your efforts?
I think the tension it creates is that, it draws a line where it's like, we're like, okay, no, it needs to stop. And then there's other people like, well, they're pointing out like I said earlier, like where would the people who commit crimes go? So that's creating like tension because they're like, well, if they just, make it a little bit better for them, then it's okay to keep prisons, and it's not. So it makes us have to fight harder to get our message and our goals met. And then an example, like I was saying earlier, was the transformation model. Like we saying like no prisons, and they saying like, oh, let's just make it more homey. Like, no, that's not what we trying to do at all.
What about you, you all on Zoom?
So I could start for the Zoom panel. I've seen this challenging in my work with organizations that I respect, organizations that I admire for the work that they do. When it come recently with this build communities, not new prisons, it seems as though we don't have as much support from those same orgs that I've helped, that my story has helped pass legislation, that my story has helped in fundraising. It seems as though now that I'm leading with this abolition mind of no, $900 million to build a new prison is asinine in 2024 when the numbers doesn't say that this helps us in way, no way as far as community. It doesn't keep it safer. It does not ensure that the recidivism goes down because we're building a new prison. Building a new prison does nothing to the bottom line of trying to make our society better, right? So those individuals that don't want to be out there, don't want their name put out there because of fundraising, it's kind of a turn off sometimes. To be honest, sorry, y'all. She's sick. So yeah, so I think that I find it challenging and mobilizing with individuals who don't necessarily believe in abolition, but are doing some of this work is definitely been a challenge.
I'm sorry,
Recently.
she's too cute. She's too cute. She stole the show.
Yeah, say hi. Thank you.
What about the you guys on Zoom?
I can say for me, there's been like numerous tension between the revolution and reform as far as like with different organizations, with different community members. that's actually doing the work. Because just because most of us or all of us say like, hey, we're revolutionary or abolitionists, sometimes it just seems like if that is the case, it don't feel like a big community, and most people have different points of view on how they approach abolition or revolution, doing revolutionary work. Um, so for me, the tension just has been not being like one community. It's just like, oh, this is, they doing their own thing over here, we doing our own thing over here. Um, the tension for me is just not being one um, entity, and we all practicing and we all saying that we doing the same thing. I hope that answers your question.
Yes, no, that was a good answer.
Yeah, I think sometimes with like the reformists, like there's like all these reformist orgs, and some of them claim to be abolitionist orgs, and a lot of them are just like they do a lot of exploitation of people locked up, and it actually becomes super harmful because a lot of people look to them as like the groups that are there to like make big changes or help everyone that's locked up because they're getting so much funding. But then whenever you're working a lot behind the scenes and you know a lot of people locked up, you know like how their communications have gone with some of these organizations. Like I'm not going to like get into the names of some of these organizations, but I can give an example of a young person that was going on hunger strike and has like a serious, like a long history of mental illness, and they all they would have needed to like get off their hunger strike, which they ended up being stuck on for a long time, was to have a little bit of legal information given to them by one of the orgs they were messing with, and they could have just stepped in and had like a legal visit with that person because that person was in solitary confinement, had restrictions based on they couldn't have phone calls or emails. And then what happens is whenever you get put on crisis watch, you can't even write to anybody. So the only person that could reach out to them at this point was like an attorney. And there was this org they were working with that was supposed to be representing them specifically. And they were just kind of like kept pushing off the legal visit and legal call. So oftentimes there's these groups that are getting all the support that's out there from the public, and that's because they have more of a reformist agenda, and they're oftentimes abusive and harmful to the people they're supposed to be representing.
So what it sounds like from all of you guys is that the general public, like the people, have not yet realized what abolition is and the effects of abolition and what the people can really gain from abolishing prisons and other harmful institutions. Really, like, what are a few lessons that and strategies that you can give to people that could further talk about abolition, that can further push the goals of an abolitionist? Because the majority doesn't actually realize what abolition truly means and what could come from it. So yeah, what are some strategies and lessons that you can give people to continue their journey towards abolishing institutions?
First, I would just say make sure you're fully educated, and when you come into a space or when you're representing like an organization, make sure that you come in like with the goals of that organization and not your own personal goals, because like you may not fully believe in completely abolishing something, but the org you working for, that's the goal. So don't like become contradicting, I guess. What other lessons? It's gonna be a long fight, so don't think that it's gonna be like immediate, or don't give up if you're not seeing change immediately. Like we're fighting against history, basically. Like this is something that has been going on for years in many different forms. So don't give up, don't be discouraged because you don't see nothing moving. Make sure that you're fully educated on what you're doing. And like for me, our org is trying to like close down prisons. So when I come into spaces or I'm doing talks with people, I'm always doing that with the thought of the incarcerated people in mind. I'm not here for myself. I'm not here for my coworkers. I'm here for the people who's struggling. So make sure you always just know what you want and know what you're there to present and go for it wholeheartedly. Like don't don't back down.
That's really great advice. What about you guys on Zoom?
For me, I would say like my personal experience um, of being a political prisoner while I was in. I was going to these workshops with an organization while I was inside, and I was handed like this small zine and like a couple of little other zines that I had read, and that's what made me realize, like get introduced to like revolutionary work or abolitionist work. And for me, it's just being able to unlearn so many things because we've been brainwashed, um, and in so many ways, like it's ridiculous. So while I was also like learning it, learning about it, I was also like unlearning a lot of the toxic, um, and things that I was taught as I was growing up, things that I seen on TV, how to work, like just everything, doing my own research, asking more questions. And as I got deep into it, like people would start to like look at me like I was crazy. Like, wait, why are you asking these questions? Like, yeah, it was crazy because we in jail you don't have access to like a computer or anything. So I'm really asking other people like, hey, what you think about this, or can you tell me more about this? And I quickly learned that other people was brainwashed too, and you can't bring that information to certain people unless they kind of know, or got their foot in the door a little bit about it. Because I'm in prison, so I'm talking to guards, and they like, no, that's not true, or this is the way it go, or whatever. But I would just wait until I got back with that organization and the person who gave me the literature to just ask deeper questions and learn more about it. Um, but yeah, I would say, as you're learning about abolition, just try to be open, especially if you don't have the experience of actually being incarcerated or know someone who has been incarcerated. Um, just have an open heart about it, be willing to learn, and not just like through a textbook, but actually like, boots on the ground with the people, struggling with the people, and finding ways in which how you can support and help the people be liberated as well.
Um, a couple things I'd like to say for sure, as far as what I've learned is that abolition isn't just a prison thing. Um, since since the system affected us before we ever, people who never got locked up is affected by this system. Um, it created an ideology of what we think that when somebody does something to us, we gotta harm them back in the same way. Or retribution is the answer to every harm. But I think that like abolition should be lived in your house. If you start to practice abolition in the home, in the schools, on the basketball court, everywhere where it's like, oh, because a harm was committed doesn't necessarily mean that person has to um, feel or receive a a opposite action that we deem as equal in retribution. That ideology, like if a child, her, when she does something, I'm not supposed to every time just get mad that she does that action. We supposed to walk through why she did that action. What caused you to do that, baby? Why did you do that? And she comes up with her reasons. And guess what's gonna happen tomorrow? She's gonna do it again. So I shouldn't punish her for trying to figure out life and through her lens, but more so understand that it's a happening. So the lesson I'm learning, I think that it's just about unlearning, like Destiny was saying. It's about healing. I do work for with community healing resource centers, and our primary thing, like to summarize it, I think that healing is a crime prevention tactic. I think that these are facilities where we can introduce holistic approaches to healing. That's holistic medicine, that's holistic music, holistic art, holistic peace circles where individuals can, get these feelings out and think and through their answers. I mean, through their questions, and um, that's where that money can go. That $900 million that they got for these prisons that they're trying to build for our kids can go towards aspects of society that will prevent people from ever having to go to prison. um, it could go into curriculum of teaching people how to be people, because I think that's the thing that we don't do. We don't know how to be people. We just know how to punish people as a society. We don't know what it's like to just to know what being a human being is like. Since like you said earlier that this country has made everything individual. Everything's individual. So when you think from an egotistic standpoint, a lot of times that's where that punitive action happens. That's where it's like, oh, dude looked at me wrong. He must got a problem. Or that's where, because I'm an individual, and so I'm moving through my society as an individual and not as a whole. So I don't have that. I don't have the cognitive awareness that I'm one with my community, that I'm one, that everything that's happening around us is happening to all of us. So just understanding all of these concepts of oneness through everybody, understanding what love really is, understanding what forgiveness really is, um, accountability, understanding what accountability really is. So in my personal journey, I had to learn that accountability wasn't just taking fault, but it was about the action in which happens after you understand, like, oh, I did that. How do I correct my action? That's where the accountability happens the next day, where you say, oh, I'm not going to do this because I know better now. That's accountability, not me getting punished or whooped by a belt and getting held accountable. That's not it. Or being sentenced to 25 years in prison as a 14-year-old kid, being held accountable. That's not it. It's many times where the justice system could have saw that, oh, this 14-year-old kid can't assist his counsel. He doesn't know what's being said. He doesn't understand the language of the law. So he should have special measures on him walking through this journey. None of that was happening because they were so focused on retribution. So the lesson I'm learning, like, is opening your mind to love, opening your mind to community, understanding what accountability really is. And yeah, so if you walk away with anything, it's just like, people talk about that abolition word and they're like, what we gonna do afterwards? You tell them what we can do now. And that's to learn what accountability is, learn what love is really like, what forgiveness is really like. So I think that's where we begin.
Yes, I totally agree. So when we're talking about prison and empire, the prison institutions are truthfully just another artery in the belly, in the beast, which is the United Snakes of America. It is just one large beast. And in such a, when you're looking at it in a different visual point, like empire it's also a very strong pillar. And when you're trying to demolish the whole structure, some pillars don't fall, or it takes a longer time to knock down a pillar. And when we're looking at prison here in the United States of America, and we're looking at struggles in prisons everywhere else that have to do with U.S. imperialism, how do you guys see the connection between your prison experience here and being incarcerated in this government and people being incarcerated in other foreign entities?
They're using like the same institutionalized, systematic methods to oppress and destabilize communities. That's all it is. It's like they're like enclosing people in jails the same here. There's no access to education, no access to medical treatment. Like, it's a lot of things lacking. So it's nothing really like different. Like, theirs might be like a little bit more, what's the word, like, I think over here, like, the jails try to cover it up more. Like, they try to hide, like, the bad stuff they doing, or try to put it off as something else. And in other countries, they're more, like, open about, like, not caring about their people. But it's all still the same thing. They're using laws and policies and prisons and prison structures to just knock us down and keep us down and keep us there.
No, definitely, I agree. What about you guys on Zoom?
Yeah, I would say for me, I just want to say, like, my first time being out the country, I had went to Palestine, and there's no comparison between, like, the U.S. and Palestine as far as like, what they're doing, but I did see similar tactics, and different things that I did see reminded me or like triggered me or brought me back to like, what goes on similar in Chicago, as far as like, policing, the different tactics that they use to like, separate people, like gentrification here, um, cameras, like the camera system is crazy in Palestine. Um, so surveillance, um, yeah, it was just so many similarities, and it was like, okay, there must be some type of blueprint or way in which a structural, thing that they use to oppress people, even if well, not even if, but oppress people all over the world. That's a lower class or um, the people, the struggling people, and how they implement different rules, regulations, all of that. It just felt so familiar when I was there, and being able to connect with the Palestinian people as well, and really learn their culture, really learn what they're going through, was just an eye opener for me. Um, so yeah, I would say the similarities between um, oppression that I've seen and
Yeah, to like
even
for
the
sorry, I'm so sorry.
Can you repeat the question for me, please?
Yeah, so just to quickly touch, like to make the connection, my grandfather, he was born and raised in Palestine and was a political prisoner for most of his life. My grandfather fought for the freedom of his family, for the freedom of his land and his people since a very young age. And even to the day my grandfather died, he rarely talked about what they did to him in the Israeli prisons. But when we did talk about them, they were the most gruesome, most horrifying stories you would hear. And he would still leave out the most disgusting parts to save a little bit of my humanity, to save a little bit of my innocence. And it just shows, and they would have no evidence. The first time he was arrested and detained by the Israeli government was after the Nakba. It was, my grandfather was 6 years old after the Nakba, and the first time he got arrested was when he was 10. And he was in jail for a whole year, a 10-year-old, a whole year for no reason. The only reason they told his father when they released him was because he was being a little shit. That's what they told his father. They told my great grandfather the reason why they took him for a whole year was because he was being a little shit. And my grandfather never came back the same way. Every single time they stole a piece of my grandfather from us. And even when he came to this country, he was blindfolded and forced on a plane to come here. And after they forced him to come here, they threw him in an American cell. And he told us that the differences are none. There is no differences. They just hide them better, like you said. They're not less extreme. If anything, they're more extreme because how they hide it. Just because they're more secretive doesn't mean that it's not really going on. Just because your loved ones that are incarcerated don't talk about the daily abuse doesn't mean it's not going on. It's constant. And a lot of times, it really does make you feel lesser. And especially for the men that are in the system, it makes you feel less of a man. I talk to my father, I talk to my grandfather, and some of the things that have happened to them, they think that if they say what happened to them, it will make them less of a man. And it's sick. It's sick, the psychological warfare. This government has taught other governments to perpetuate. And the same security systems that are used in Israel are used in America. The same ones. Magnal Security Systems is the same people that literally built the apartheid wall and built the US border wall. It's the same people that are in every cop city monitoring everybody. It's the same security company. Look them up, Magnal, Magal Systems. They are the same people that monitor us every single day. When you walk on the street, you know how many times your photo is taken? By the time you get back into your house, your photo has been taken 1,000 times and documented for the government. It's for no reason. They keep an eye on everybody to further dispossess, to further push you into the system. So my question was, really, how do you, what are the similarities to your experience being incarcerated and other experiences that you've heard from people living in foreign countries?
Yeah, so the carceral system is definitely the same. I like what Destiny has said. It was like so similar. I think when I as a child going through the system, I remember at a point I was 17 years old and they had transferred me to an adult facility from juvenile facility, and I was walking with these shackles on, and it's like a line of 20 people. We all got these shackles on, and we're just walking. And I never experienced slavery, but my DNA has, and I almost remembered it, if that makes sense. Like I became nauseous, I became ill. The smell of handcuffs became a thing to me. I never knew that I can be nauseous off the smell of
like
iron.
this country made a muscle memory. It's kind of like this country has made a muscle memory.
For sure. And so, like, what Destiny was talking about, far as like the similarities, and she felt like the way that they enacted law and the way that they governed the people was similar. That's because colonialism is real globally. Every country from Australia to the African countries to America to what they're trying to do in Palestine, they're doing it. They've been doing it for years and years and years. Rather they do it through war or they do it through religion, because religion has been used as a tool on our people for many, many years, where they come into these lands and they tell them, oh, the way that y'all are living is not right. And so we want y'all to now take on our way of living, our way of thinking, our religion. And then what happens from that religion is they create a concept of good and bad. And then they tell you that you're not following our rules, even though we're on your land now and we're enacting our mindset and the way that we view the world onto your people. It's not going to be fair anyway, because every single time they end up on the top. I haven't heard of societies where the French go in and the French end up the poor, or the English go in and they end up the poor. That's not how it goes. They go into these places and they exploit people for their natural resources. They enact these laws that keep them on the top and keep people on the bottom. I was driving, and I was driving downstate Illinois, and I was just driving, and for miles and miles, I'm just like, look at this beautiful land. And it forced me to think of the people who inhabited this land before all of these concrete jungles were built in the Chicagos and all of these other cities, and all of these different things that we now are forced to deal with, like taxes, these different laws, prison, everything that we stress about now. It made me think like, oh man, I wonder how life was before they came over here. And then it made me think about Israel, and it made me think about Gaza. And it's like, oh, the same thing is happening just today. They're trying to conquer a people's land the same way they did over here, and they use war. People don't ever talk about the Indians that lost their lives to these people and that fought off these people. There's so many wars that happened in America that they don't teach us about, but we fought back. It wasn't like we said, oh yeah, y'all can have our land. That's not what happened. The same thing that they're trying to accomplish in every other land is what they did to this one. And so the system is that same cloth. It's no different. It's the baby of it. It's and they've done a good job, which is why prison even exists in the mass incarceration way in which it does now, is because what happened was America realized that I can't play politics with my reality being what it was, that I'm actually committing a human crime against a group of people, which they never got. Like, I don't remember the world coming together and saying, oh, what they did to those black folks over there was a crime against humanity, because it was, and it is. And so what they did was say, okay, what we're going to do is, instead of cattle slavery, instead of just keep treating them as slaves, we're going to twist it. We're going to create a society in which they're going to funnel themselves to prison. And that's what they did. So they made it look better, to where now, when I walk into prison, I'm a slave. Like, the Constitution makes me a slave just because the 13th Amendment. And so that's just a pretty way of doing what they're doing over there. It's like taking all our rights away and telling us, subjecting us to slave-like conditions. I think about Congo when I'm thinking about this right now. I think about those kids that have to work in those mines because the government tells them that they have to, and nobody is there to help them. And capitalism is a war on us and our people, and it creates we was talking about work earlier. It creates this psychological thing that, oh, I don't have what they have, so I'm not worthy. And so when you're dealing and operating from a place of worthlessness, you start to act different. And they tricked us, and they tricked us with that. And that's just what they do. So it's the same globally. I hope that makes sense. Sorry about that. It's definitely the same.
No, that made a lot of sense. So I guess my last question for today is, what opportunities and challenges do you guys see on the horizon? Like, what are abolitionists facing, like, challenges wise, and what opportunities can abolitionists take advantage of in the near future?
Some challenges I feel like we're facing is just getting people to fully understand what abolition is and what we're trying to do, and why prisons and all these systems are harmful. Because it's a challenge to unlearn everything that you thought was right. Like, that's a huge challenge. So that and just constantly fighting to get, like, it's a war. It's gonna be constant. It's gonna be back and forth. They're gonna keep trying to push us. We're gonna keep pushing back. So I would say just get involved, stay involved, go out into communities and see, like, for real, for yourself, what's going on, what this community need, where you can be helpful yourself, or if you hear what an org, where your org can be helpful. I would just say get out there, get active, and stay active.
For me, I'll say us as a community, we gotta find our own, like, how should I say it? Like, I know funding is a big thing, and not being able to rely on funding that's not like good, I should say, because it's good and bad funding. So, and it's hard to find funding that don't have, like, deep restrictions, or, like, make you do so many things just to be able to do the work, in a consistent, reliable funding as well. I know that's a big thing. Like, since I've been, involved in organizational work, and now have an organization myself, that's a big thing for us, is being able to deliver, services to the young people that's incarcerated without having to, sustain that funding from the state. Even though all of that funding is going to the young people, it's still like, we don't want to depend on them for that to keep on going, especially if our goal and mission is to abolish these systems. Another thing for me would be, just being able to make the connections between organizations that's on the same page politically, be on the same, accord, build community with one another. And not for it to be like a head. Like, I believe in, not being hierarchy or having a hierarchical system. So, coming as one, like, we can all still be our own organizations, but we still one movement. People shouldn't be able to identify us in a revolutionary community or an abolitionist community and be like, okay, real is the head of this movement, or Final Five is the head of this community. We should all be one.
What about
Amazing.
yeah? What are some other
Um,
call to actions you guys have?
hmm. Yeah, so us at the Coalition of Decarcerate Illinois, we're doing a lot around water, bringing awareness to the environmental hazard that the water that people are ingesting on the inside is. Um, I think that if we can continue to make these connections to what people get to see on TV, the everyday people, right? We get to see if we get to make those connections to Gaza, to what's happening in Congo, to over here, because all we do is watch it on TVs. But it's so if like the everyday American could start seeing the similarities, like your father was saying, ain't nothing different. But if we could get more people to see that, then maybe they start to see something wrong. Um, but like, sorry, but the Coalition to Carceral Illinois, we definitely bringing awareness to this water crisis that's happening. We definitely bringing awareness to that $900 million that they about to put into 2 facilities for our young kids. So what call to action is definitely get involved. I want to touch on what Destiny said a little bit is that we need each other. We have to become a power. That's the only way. Because we're dealing with a system that's so ancient. We're dealing with a power that's so stout and so cemented in belief in system that we have to gain power. We have to gain financial power. We have to gain numbers power for our people, and we have to become one. Even though we have individual orgs, we have to be one in mind, be one in action, support each other when it comes to these events, show up for one another. If y'all want to get involved with what we do, y'all could go to coalition to decarcerateillinois.com or get at us on social media. And yeah, we got a lot of stuff that we have that y'all can help with already.
I don't have any specific campaigns or anything to talk about, but I would say that we need more people involved in a more hardcore way that are willing to sacrifice like part of their life towards this. Um, because right now there's like a small amount of people that are doing the work like 24/7, and it's just not sustainable. There's people that have like their health is declining, their mental health is declining. So we need more people willing to sacrifice for the end of the prison system and the end of police. Um, but yeah, the campaigns that are going on in the prisons, yeah, there's the water crisis, there's solitary confinement. Um, we need to do something more about youth sentencing for sure. And then we don't have anything really built up on the outside for reentry. There's like a few orgs that do that, but we need to do that more as like a community. And we need to have spaces for people to come and for people to come home and heal and have stuff provided for them. We need to do that as a community. I don't really want to say like that's like an organizational thing, because organizations, a lot of these organizations, they clock out. Like people are working and then they can't do any more work till they're like done, so they turn that phone off or whatever. But we need to have like more community structures that are built in like self-defense and taking care of each other once people are returning home, and then also completely like destroying the prison system. Like I was gonna mention like with I think it was like the last question, like similarities in between things. Like jails, prisons, and detention centers are nothing like but the colonizers' tools to genocide, and that's happening here, and that's what's happening in Palestine. And we're not gonna be able to just abolish these things through legislature or through like protests or anything like that. The surrounding areas are going to have to be cleared out of the colonizers, and those places are going to have to be torn down. If you look at Al Qiyam prison in southern Lebanon, whenever Israel was occupying southern Lebanon, that was a prison that was controlled by Israel, and basically the colonizers were chased out of southern Lebanon, and then everyone in that prison was liberated. And that's what's going to happen next to everyone in Palestine, especially in the prisons. Once all the colonizers are chased out, those prisons are going to be torn apart. everyone's going to be free over there, and that's the same thing that's going to have to be done here as well.
Thank you so much. Like, we've been getting like so much good advice, and really, we just gotta read more, read more. And when you think you've read enough, read more. Read like 10 pages more. And then when you read those 10 pages, read 10 more. Just keep reading. Further your political education until there's literally no more books on this earth. Just keep reading. That's my advice. But we'll start taking like Q&A from the crowd if anybody has any questions for us. Up here. And then I think we have one back there next.
Is this on? Thanks, y'all. Really appreciate all the wisdom. I learned a lot. My question is, I'm a formerly incarcerated person. I did a few years in my youth in state prison in California. And a big misconception that I have noticed is that from people on the outside assume that everyone in prison is abolitionist. Also just have a lot of assumptions of incarcerated people being more of like that they're more the same than they are. It's an extremely diverse population of people, including with a lot of reactionary elements within it, particularly within the white folks that are locked up. There's a lot of overt fascists within the prison system, and so I hear, people saying we got to organize prisoners, and I'm curious how y'all have dealt with promoting abolition to people who are currently inside. Like a lot of the ideas of abolition, the framework is trying to appeal to maybe a liberal person who's never been incarcerated. But what kind of arguments do you feel are compelling for currently incarcerated people or formerly incarcerated people that could be compelling across the diversity within that population?
For me, I would just say educating them. Like, in our experience, we haven't really had issues with like the inmates or like the incarcerated individuals pushing back. It's more of like guards and staff who don't truly understand what we're trying to do or the harm of their job, or they're more worried about like, how I'm finna feed my family once all this over with. So I think it's just educating people in prisons about like, for one, the struggles and what it really is, because it's just modern day slavery that needs to be stopped. And then just letting them know, like, we not just gonna send y'all out into the world and leave y'all out there. Like, we here for the long run. We gonna work with you while you in there. We working with you while you out. Like, it's not something that's just like, oh, we gonna do this now, and then when we done with our work, we done with it. So I think just letting them know that we here for support. We not here to like harm or do none. Like, we actually trying to do the opposite.
No, I agree. When my father and my grandfather were rallying up the troops in prison, like to overthrow whatever was going on, because sometimes my dad used to get thrown in a hole for trying to start riots, for rightfully so, because there was a lot of fucked up shit happening. But every time, it was never really the inmates. It was really the guards, and we just have to show them and prove to them that there's alternatives, that they don't have to sell their soul and work for an institution that will literally end up wanting to institutionalize their own family one day. So really just showing them that there's an alternative. Like, you can be doing something else. You could be doing something more beneficial for the world than working in an institution that literally brutalizes Black and brown people for fun. What about you guys on Zoom?
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I'll go real quick. So my mission as the community organizer is to definitely involve individuals on the inside. We have an advisory board that we get direct, up-to-date information on how they're being treated, what's actually happening on the inside and we communicate with them through GTL, but also just uplifting them and bringing them along this journey. Also informing people. There is people on the inside that solely believe like, oh, I'm just doing my time, bro. I did the crime, I did the time. I ain't got nothing to complain about. Because one thing about the system is so great that you don't even know it's happening. It's so good. It's doing its job, right? And so you have people that accepted when they came up in the hood. They like, oh shit, this what comes with it. We hear that a lot, like in the black and brown and poor white community. Like, oh, this what come with it. I do the crime, I get caught, I get locked up, I do my time, and I come home. Um, a lot of people don't understand the underlying conditions of why they even was in that position. So our job is to just inform people, right? Informing people, and then, like you say, good reads. Reading broadens your perspective on what's actually happening compared to what you think is happening. So, yeah, as far as the incarcerated population, that's our family. They're one with us. Yes, some of them don't believe in abolition. That's so true. To answer the brother question, but yeah, like involving them and then just informing them. We're gonna have people that's quote unquote on our side that we will have to inform and teach about what abolition is truly about.
Absolutely. To answer your question, when we go inside the prisons and do workshops with the young people, we first, come up with community guidelines, code of ethics. We create a safe space for everybody. Um, and some of the topics we speak on is, anti-capitalism, socialism, the revolutionary movement, that history, abolition of gender binary, anti-patriarchy, anti-colonialism, anti-imperialism, um, and I could just keep going on and on, but we break those different sectors down all the way to the core so that the young people can understand like what it is, not just like what the word is, but to be able to identify that when someone is speaking that. And then they even come back, when we come back, they even come back to us and be like, oh, this is what's happening in the prison. Like, this is the way they treating us. So they identify those different things as we breaking it down, um, and that's how we're able to introduce that to them, um, and they learn as we go, and we just keep on bringing different um, you what is it, different literature, different articles. We watch documentaries with them. Um, we fight for them to come out into the community, to come to different conferences, um, different events that we have in the community. What's another thing? Yeah, and another thing too, because I heard someone say inmates on a call. Um, like even young people, we have to, you know, unlearn some of those institutional words that we were told was okay or that we were called, right? Um, but yeah, we
Thank
wanna
you.
we wanna break that down and teach them like y'all are not inmates, y'all are not animals, y'all are all human, young people. Um, yeah, that's just my opinion. I wouldn't necessarily call them inmates because they're not.
Thank you, Destiny. Can we do one more question? Or maybe two?
Hi, everyone. My name is Kamaya. I want to first thank the panel for the level of expertise and wisdom that y'all brought into this space. I love this conversation. I love the question that you just asked. I think it was necessary in this space. I think a lot of things that I've been hearing is like just the importance and what abolition requires. It requiring people power, right? Collective people power, and what that takes. That takes us to undo and unlearn a lot of the things that we have been taught, that this country has taught us, specifically around the fact that police don't do what we think that they do. Prisons aren't designed to rehabilitate like we've been taught that they've been designed to do. Also, the fact that, abolition requires directly impacted people leading the work, right? Directly impacted whether they're currently incarcerated or formerly incarcerated. Those are the folks who should have the mic. Those are the folks who should be leading this work, and all other folks should be just taking wisdom from them on how to move about this space. And so Another thing that I wanted to bring up, I'm directly impacted. My father was incarcerated when I was 3, and so that ultimately led me to do the type of work that I'm doing now. I do legal and policy work around recidivism and reentry, and then I do narrative work around challenging us to view who we deem criminal, right? And using people first language and things like that. So that's what I do in my daily work, but my personal experience with being directly impacted by the system and moral convictions led me to do that work. One thing that I want to ask the panel is, you know, the fact that abolition requires us to have real conversations. And I think it's easy for us to sit here, some of us to sit in our ivory towers or be coming from communities that are not being surveilled and hunted by the police, coming from communities that folks aren't going to prison, right? I want to ask you all, how have you all dealt with the tension between this need and necessity for abolition, but the tension between that and also the communities feeling like, wait, I need the police, right? My nephew on the block just got shot, and we don't know who did it, right? And he's dead, right? So what do we do? Or somebody just got harmed in my family or on my block, right? And we need to actually have a remedy to this, right? And those are real conversations that I think have to be had in order for us to further and really materialize what it looks like to live in a world with no prisons, right? No police, right? How have y'all handled that tension and those difficult conversations when it comes to talking to our folks about real things that are happening?
I think having the conversations first off is most important, and having them honestly. And then kind of like what they were saying earlier, like we got to think back to, you know, before everybody came over here, like there wasn't no prisons, like the community handled stuff like that. So I think just taking it back, and as we're going to continue to have to learn. As we go, it's going to be stuff that work and stuff that don't work. Like I'm not going to sit up here and say that we got all the answers or everything is figured out and planned out. Like it is a learning process. We are learning as we are going. So I think that just having the conversations, having them honestly, coming together, in unity, because you know you may have an idea about something, or somebody may have went through something that your organization is trying to go through. So I think getting together, coming together, and sharing ideas, sharing struggles, honestly, openly, safely. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. Sorry, I just automatically lost my train of thought. No, but it's a long road, like abolition and being more community-based. So I live in North Lawndale, which is a very marginalized, it's majority black. It's since of the gentrification going on in the neighboring neighborhood, it has become more black and brown, but it has been majority black historically. And there's gun violence that happens every single week, like day to day. You hear gunshots. There's people that die in the back of my house, people that I know that I lived there for almost 10 years, no, for over 10 years now. And when I talk to my community members about abolition and about the steps after abolition, when the prisons are gone, what's next? You know, what's next for my mourning heart? Like, what's next? And the truth is, it won't be easy. It won't be easy. These conversations are not easy because a lot of times we're still in that individualistic mindset where it's like, well, what about my family? What about what happened to me? It's not fair. But the reality is that we have to stop it from happening to more families in the future. And statistically, the police produce the most crime here in America. They facilitate the most crime, not the people, but the institution. And when we tell these people, hey, we're gonna be determining our own self-determination. We're gonna be sitting down family to family, figuring out what happens when there's a dispute, figuring out, having those hard conversations with each other, regardless of differences with religion or cultural. In Palestine, when we went to go visit the Bedouins in the desert, in the Nakab, the Bedouins, they don't listen to the Israeli government. The Israeli government, no matter how strong they are, they can never beat the Bedouins. They can never get through the Bedouin villages. And that's because how hardcore, how community-based they are, how hard they go for each other. And whenever a dispute happens, whether it's murder or an other serious crime like that, it's taken up with the families. And if the families are of the same religion, it's taken up with the religious leader of the community. And there's always people to help facilitate these meetings, to make sure that it doesn't go south and it goes the way it's supposed to. But a lot of times, these families are able to come to an understanding on why it happened, and how we can stop it from happening again. And most of the time, when we're talking about this, we don't need other people determining what's best for us. We don't need other people talking for us. We need to talk for ourselves. So the more we do that for each other, the better it will be. So it's just sticking out the long road. It's going to be hard, but it's worth it.
Thank you. You touched on a lot of pieces that I was going to speak on. I think you dove deep into it already, but participatory defense is basically allowing a community, so getting both parties, both sides of the family, or who's ever involved, to sit down and determine what needs to be done on both ends. But for me, it's getting down to anything that has to do with, holding us as a community or us as a people responsible, and taking accountability for anything that's been done is, getting to the root of the problem. And sometimes the root of those problems be mental health issues, poverty, mental issues, why, a lot of violence occur. So to me, if we can get down to the root of the problems, and really figure out solutions for them besides prisons, or even the extreme, like having somebody, I don't even want to say it, but if we can get down to the root of these problems without it being any police involved or prisons through participatory defense, I feel like that is a strong, a good, strong solution to look into. And also, I wanted to speak on the first question too. When I was over in Palestine and we visited, and we was in Ramallah, another thing that I noticed is how they are so, caught up and aware of the political world, and how they're so educated on everything, right? How they know their history. Like I sat down, I think we was there in Ramallah for like 3 days, and I learned so much within those 3 days from, just, hanging with them and being with them. And some of them was as young as 10 years old, like really breaking the history down and telling us, what's going on over there. And that it was just so like amazing to me. Like if our people in our community can really like be aware of like what's going on too, because that's the thing too. People are not aware of their history or like their environment or like politically aware of what's going on. So that's why everybody or most people be like, I want the police involved, or I'm gonna call the police, because they're not fully educated on, what harm and damage the police have caused in our communities and our families. So yeah.
I think that's all we have time for today, but I really appreciate everybody that came to talk with us, all the panelists, and every single body that came to listen to everybody on the panel. I really appreciate y'all, and I hope y'all learned something. And I'm not sick, I've just been screaming.